Hey guys, thank you so much for bouncing on over here to Two Awesome Men.
Two Awesome Men.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We haven't done this since July, so we forgot we changed the name.
The Awesome Padron Show. You probably bounced over to Two Awesome Men and like, oh, what's this channel? You know, so like, thank you so much for coming over here. In general, it's been a long time since we made a video. I feel like we made a lot of videos where we say it's been a long time since we made a video.
Well, this one is probably our biggest break because our last video I think was Thor: Love and Thunder, which came out in July 2022.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's February 2023 now.
Yeah, I will say this time we actually do have a legitimate excuse. Our audio the thing we record our audio on completely broke. And so we do like to have our audio be in good condition. And this microphone needs to be screwed because it keeps falling. But
speaking of audio, good condition.
Yeah, we like to have our audio be in the best condition we can. And so we have a new audio thing. I probably sound so stupid to tech people. We have a new audio recorder. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, we're going to use our backup audio, which probably not going to sound that great.
Yeah, because it's phone.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. But hopefully going forward, we can at least try to figure out the specs on that thing. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and do our top 20 movies of the decade of 2022.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen 54 movies that came out last year. You've seen what, 38 movies. I've actually seen 9 of the 10 Best Picture nominees for the Oscars. Triangle of Sadness was the only one I haven't seen, so sorry, Triangle of Sadness fans. I wasn't able to get to that one. I probably will, and I'll put it in the comments where I put it in my list. But yeah, I've seen 54. You've seen 38.
Yeah, and I'll also say we are going to do this year a little different if you've watched ours in the past. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it to where if one of us has, like, let's say we have one movie, Zach has his at 20 and I have mine, that same movie at like 17, we're both going to talk about it whenever Zach talks about it at 20, and then whenever it gets to 17, I'm just going to say the name of the movie.
Yeah.
And so that's just how we're gonna do that, just so we can get through this a little quicker.
Yeah, and so it runs a little smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we're gonna go ahead and get started with our top 20 movies of 2022. Yeah, I forgot. But before we do that, we're going to do 5 honorable mentions each. Movies like Hustle, Pinocchio, X, and The Menu.
And my honorable mentions are X, Smile, All Quiet on the Western Front, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and The Northman.
For my number 20, I'm going to go with Smile, which is a very surprising movie for me. The trailers looked terrible. It looked like another movie where it just had like a gimmick. But overall, the movie was actually pretty creepy at times. I'm not going to act like it was phenomenal, but for a horror movie that literally is just like this smiling monster that if you see it, you're gonna end up killing yourself at some point. It actually did a lot more with the characterization than I thought it would.
For my number 20
and my 19,
we're gonna go with Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. This movie was just enjoyable to watch, but I also really love the social commentary that came with it about how like a lot of people nowadays, especially online, they just assume the worst like conclusion and almost practically kill each other over it when it's really just nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's minor spoilers, but it was just a really enjoyable thriller and mystery to watch.
Yeah, and I've seen some people who really talk about it to where like they act like, oh, it's kind of stupid or it's kind of dumb. But I honestly feel like that's kind of the point of it, is to be dumb and to pull off that message.
Right, and the satire of today's world. For my number 19, I have Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and this is a really cute movie. I really love the YouTube videos that came out like a decade ago, and I was happy that they made a movie about it, and I was glad that A24 made a movie about it, and I was really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, and honestly, it was just like a really cute movie. And I wasn't expecting to like not like this movie. I'm sure I would have liked it, but I wasn't really expecting to like it as much as I did. And like overall, I do think it's a really good movie for adults to bring their kids to, but also really enjoy themselves. And I had that at number 18.
For my number 18, I have Pearl.
Yeah, and I have it later on, so I'm going to talk about it now.
Yeah, and this is a prequel to X, which also came out last year. It was kind of funny how they both came out in the same year, just a few months apart. And it was, I actually liked it more than X, honestly.
Yeah, I did too.
The acting from Mia Goth, I don't know how she wasn't nominated for an Oscar this year, the Oscars have some bias against horror movies, it seems, but her performance really carries this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I don't think the whole movie itself should be nominated, but her especially, she has this monologue, like a really long monologue, that she just keeps it together through the whole. Well, I mean, the character doesn't, but like the actress, she just keeps it together so well. She does so fantastic in that. And like you said, I really just don't understand why they don't give more credit to horror actresses like people like her, Toni Collette in Hereditary. It's just really upsetting. But yeah, overall, I like this movie a lot. I was expecting to like it more than X just because you could tell, because slasher films usually don't do a lot of characterization. But this movie did a lot of characterization and is really good.
Yeah, you got a little glimpse of it in X, and you got to see a lot more of it
exactly.
in there.
For my number 17, I have The Northman. And overall, I don't really have a whole bunch to say about this movie. There's just a certain level of brutality and realness to this movie and just disturbingness that I really like a lot. And overall, it just tells a classical epic in a really great and grounded way.
For my number 17, I have Speak No Evil. A lot of people complain about the parents being really dumb in this movie, which I do agree with that. But I just love the slow build-up that they had to the ending of this movie. And the ending is so messed up, so disturbing, that it really stuck with me for a while after finishing the movie.
For my number 16, I have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
And I have this later on my list too, so I'll talk about it right now.
I was about to call it Doctor Who.
Yeah, I didn't know you watched Doctor Who in the first place.
But overall, I think this movie, I know it does get a decent amount of criticism, but as a really big fan of Sam Raimi and his very strange directorial flair, I do love this movie because it's an all-out Sam Raimi movie. It really is.
Yeah, it's the Raimi-isms that were in this movie just made it such a blast to watch. Like, this was one of the most fun times I've had watching a movie in the theater as I've had all year, honestly, especially in the Marvel movies.
Yeah, and it's like another movie that I love because you just watch it and you just see the director saying, hey, I'm going to do this, and you can't tell me otherwise.
My number 16 is White Noise, and this movie, the dialogue in this movie is written so well. Noah Baumbach is a master at writing dialogue, which is one of the main reasons I'm really excited for the Barbie movie that's coming out this year. And the dialogue and how it's delivered in this movie might seem strange to a lot of people, and I've actually seen a lot of people complain about it, but it was almost like a dance for me, just watching two dancers dance while they're talking in this movie. Just the way the lines just flowed back and forth with each other. And also like how it was able to switch between so many different genres throughout this entire movie.
And like I said earlier, I had this movie a little bit later, but for my number 15, I have Pearl.
For my number 15, I have Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Yeah, and I have it a little bit later, so I'll just talk about it now.
This movie was so surprising. I wasn't expecting it to be bad necessarily, but I was even telling you before we watched it, like, I just hope that I can put this somewhere on my list because I don't have the highest hopes for it to being like great or anything.
Yeah,
I just want to be able to put it in my honorable mentions at least.
Especially since we've always been such big fans of Weird Al, and we even met him one time.
Yeah, we just bumped into him on the streets of New York City. Yeah. We didn't even know he was going to be there, but. This movie was one of the funniest movies I saw all last year, if not the funniest.
Yeah, it really was. What's fantastic about this movie is it's the most Weird Al way you can go about making a true story or a biopic. It's basically a parody of biopics. Another reason I'm really glad how a movie this good was. Another reason why I'm so glad about how good this movie was is Daniel Radcliffe. I'm a really huge fan of him, and I really love how he's gone from being in like Harry Potter and really was like, you're not going to typecast me, and just played in some of the most ridiculous roles. For my number 14, I have All Quiet.
All Quiet.
All Quiet. For my number 14, I have All Quiet on the oh my God. All Quiet on the Western Front. Okay, let's say I have All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a war film. War films aren't like something I like. They're not like one of my top film genres, but I do go see them because they're usually pretty good. This movie I love just because of the sheer like brutality it shows of war. It really doesn't hide away from how bad it was. There's even like a scene where they're like really thirsty and they're drinking this water and the water is like gray, and it just shows like how the desperation of these people, the desperation while they're in war, the desperation to get out of that war. And throughout the whole movie, you just see these soldiers and their mental stability like disintegrating.
For my number 14, I have Barbarian.
Yeah, and I have it a little bit later, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it right now. And this is another movie that was really surprising for me, and I really love that. I think that's what they're trying to do. This movie, the trailer, I watched the trailer and I'm like, this looks really stupid. It looks so predictable. And I think what I love about this movie so much is that not only is the trailer predictable, not only are you watching the trailer and you think it's gonna be predictable, but throughout the whole movie, they keep throwing things at you that it's like, oh, it's gonna be predictable. I know it's gonna happen, but then they just throw a curveball at you over and over again. And it's not really necessarily like twists. It's just like this movie knows what people predict, and it just completely goes against it every time.
Exactly, yeah, and it like starts over pretty much like twice, I remember, to where it like jumps back and like explains some things that happen. And I just really love how it wasn't until like maybe like 45 minutes into this movie that you really start seeing what this movie's actually about. Yeah. And it's just like completely all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, okay. Yeah. And then it jumps back and it explains a little more about it. So it was a really fun movie to watch.
For my number 13, I have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
And I have this higher up on my list, so I'll talk about it right now as well. This movie honestly was another surprising movie for me this past year, because I saw the first Puss in Boots movie that came out in 2011, and I also don't remember anything from that movie.
Yeah.
Really, I remember Humpty Dumpty being in it,
yeah,
but I don't remember anything about the story or anything that happened in it. So I wasn't expecting too much from this movie. I will say the trailers that came out earlier in the year, like, it actually got me pretty like interested in it, because the trailer actually seemed pretty funny. And the art style looked interesting. It looked like the Into the Spider-Verse animation style. But I wasn't expecting to love this movie so much.
Yeah.
It has one of the best animated villains I've seen in a while, with the wolf character. Just everything about him, every time he was on screen, he was just so captivating.
Yeah, and it was just so cool. And I won't go into spoilers, but like, whenever the villain first pops up, you're like, oh, this is a little weird, a little coincidental. But then later on, when they actually reveal what's happening, you're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense.
Right, and it really strengthens a lot of scenes that happened prior to that.
I also like this movie because it's a little more adultish. I won't say that this is like in a straight up adult movie. Well,
Whoa. I'm sure that's out there. Yeah. Was there Rule 84, Rule 34?
Yeah, I'll have to look something up after we film this.
Don't look up Rule 34.
But like, I'm not gonna say like this is purely for adults. It's obviously for kids, but I also feel like this is more for like older kids. It definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't shy away from like a real like. There's a few villains in this movie, and there's one that's just like really evil, and they don't shy away from how evil he is.
Yeah, and that's another thing I love about this movie, is that there's 3 different types of villains in this movie, which I won't really go into it because one of them is kind of a spoiler, but is the 3 different like main types of villains that you see in movies, and they have all 3 of them in this, which adds another layer to how great this movie is.
And they really kind of do a good job at digging into like Puss's his like, he has like anxiety through the movie, and there's a really cool scene that has to do with that.
For my number 13, I have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
And I have this a little bit further up, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it right now. This movie, I think, was really interesting because I definitely didn't expect it to be bad. I thought it was going to be, from the trailer, I thought it was going to be good. But I also know that Marvel was given a difficult hand with this movie. Seeing as Chadwick Boseman passed away a couple of years ago, and just how pretty integral and pretty, like, he was Black Panther, he was T'Challa. And so overall, I think that they did really well with that. I also know that this movie, Marvel really, it was like almost a lose-lose situation. They were going to make someone mad regardless, whether or not they recast him, whether or not they didn't recast him. But I think for not recasting him and just having his character have passed away, they did it in the best possible way, in the most respectful way they could.
Yeah, and I really love just the story that was in it, because not only did they do a great job of memorializing Chadwick Boseman with this movie, but just the story with Namor's character, and just how the rest of the world, especially America, is wanting vibranium, and it just seems like a story that would actually happen if vibranium actually existed. Yeah. So it's just a cool, interesting story.
Like I said earlier, I had this movie a little down the line, but for my number 12, I have Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
For my number 12, I have The Outfit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I have it later. And honestly, my favorite thing about this movie is I really do like movies that are in one setting. Especially movies like this, because you have this one setting, and it's not just a one setting just because they didn't want to probably spend money on other settings, and maybe that was partially the case, I don't know. But overall, it was just in one setting, but it was also gave you this feeling like being trapped, nowhere to go.
Yeah, and the acting is great, and I just love the mystery of what is actually going on in this night during this movie, and I just love all the reveals.
For my number 11, I have The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and this movie gave me absolutely everything I wanted. I was a little worried at first because the first trailer didn't look that good. The second trailer looked a lot better, but overall, I just was kind of off. Like maybe I was expecting it not to be very good. But this movie, if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage, and not just like a fan of like his like old like Leaving Las Vegas or anything like that, but like if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage, how we know and love Nicolas Cage, you're gonna absolutely love this movie. And then the chemistry between Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal is weird, like unexpectedly fantastic.
For my number 11, I have Top Gun Maverick,
and I have a little bit later, so I'm gonna go and talk about it right now. This movie, I think, is just I'm not gonna lie, and I never saw the first one.
Yeah, neither did I, honestly. So, I literally watched the summary on YouTube as I was driving to the theater.
And then you showed it to me.
I didn't watch it, but I was listening to it.
And then you showed it to me. And I will say what's kind of cool about this is you really only need to know like one thing about the first movie to know anything about the second, in order to know anything about the second one. To watch the second one, I'm sure that if you watch the first one, you probably like it even more. But overall, this movie right here was just honestly, in a sense, a feel-good movie. The whole movie was very emotionally driven, and honestly it gave you exactly what you would expect and what you would want out of this movie.
Yeah, and what especially made this so great for me, this movie, the special effects that went into making this movie, just like seeing like some of the behind the scenes videos and just how much effort they put into making this movie the most exciting movie possible just elevated this movie so much for me. And for both of our number 10s, we both have The Banshees of Inisherin, and this movie was another one of the funniest movies I saw all last year. This and Weird Al are probably battling between the two top funniest movies I saw all last year. Martin McDonagh, I've only seen two other movies that he wrote and directed, Seven Psychopaths and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Yeah.
And all three of them are so hilarious.
Yeah.
Especially Three Billboards in this movie. They're like technically serious. Well, Three Billboards more so, but they're both serious movies pretty much.
Yeah.
But there's such like dry humor that's so perfect, and it's just injected into these scenes that are even the scene, if the scene is serious, that still has like natural humor that's just so great.
Not only is the acting good in this movie, but really for the kind of writing that this movie has and the kind of comedy and how it's really just bouncing off of each other with the lyrics, the dialogue.
I guess technically.
Yeah. Well, kind of like the dialogue is bouncing off of each other. You really have to have actors that know how to portray that well. And people like, oh goodness, the
Colin Farrell and Brandon Gleeson.
Yeah. I forgot their names. Those two right there, even though this movie is supposed to have them not have chemistry, they have chemistry in the most non-chemistry way.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Colin Farrell especially is so great at delivering dry humor.
Yeah.
In this and in The Lobster and a few other movies I've seen him in, he's probably one of my favorite comedic actors, which he's not even known as like a comedic actor, but he's definitely one of my favorites for comedy.
Yeah. For my number 9, I have Glass Onion.
And I also have this higher up on my list, so I'll talk about it right now. This movie, Knives Out, was my favorite movie of 2019. You can go back and watch our best of 2019. It was my number 1. And this movie was really unexpected when it was announced, because I didn't really expect for that Knives Out to even have a sequel. But it is done so perfectly. Like, I really hope they just make a whole bunch of movies with Benoit Blanc solving mysteries, which I think they've already announced that they already have a few sequels planned out. But this and Knives Out both did something that was so clever that makes them stand apart from other murder mysteries. Knives Out revealed stuff early on that you weren't expecting them to reveal to you early on, but it added another layer to that made it even more interesting following the story after that. This one kind of made it to where you didn't even really know the murder mystery was already going on when the movie began, and it's not revealed till the halfway point pretty much, and it goes back and kind of explains a little more. And it's just really interesting how they were able to mix the genre up.
Yeah, exactly. And the way it's able to go back like that and not make anything feel like a waste of time, the whole story comes together really well. Even though, like you said, it does do a flashback, and what I really like about this, and kind of what turns me off of a lot of kind of some murder mysteries. A lot of murder mysteries, they'll either do sometimes they'll do two things. They'll either be like so obvious, and they don't try to hide it. It's more of sometimes it's more along the lines of how they're going to get them,
Yeah.
But then there's also the murder mystery type where it'll be like so unobvious that by the time it's revealed, it's like, what?
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere, And the way these movies are set up is to where if you like pay really close attention to stuff, a lot of times, sometimes you can kind of piece little things together yourself, but not all the way, because obviously there's always going to be this big clue at the end to really piece it together.
Hey guys, it's Zach here. Something I noticed while editing was somehow while we were filming, I somehow skipped over my number 9. So I'm here filming it now, and my number 9 is Elvis. Now, this movie truly felt like a love letter to Elvis fans. From how the songs were incorporated into the movie, to the way it told Elvis's story, to how he impacted music, culture, and really society as a whole. The director, Baz Luhrmann, definitely had his touch in this movie. Some good, some bad, but overall it added to a very entertaining biopic that really kept the energy moving, and Austin Butler truly encapsulated Elvis, from his mannerisms to his voice to everything really in his performance. And it made my mom, who's a huge Elvis fan, cry, so there's that.
I talked about this movie earlier, but for my number 8, I'm going to go with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, and I also talked about my number 8 earlier on, and my number 8 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
And then again, I talked about this earlier, but my number 7 is going to be Top Gun: Maverick.
For my number 9, I have Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, I saw Avatar way back in 2009 when it came out in theaters, but I never saw it again. I didn't really have an interest in seeing it again, and I didn't have an interest in seeing the second one when it's coming out. And when I first saw this new one, I felt the same as I did the first Avatar. Well, pretty much the same. But then I saw it again, and I saw it a third time, and I saw it in 3D and 2D. And each time I saw it, it honestly got better. Just the special effects on this movie are just so mind-blowing. Like, it's like revolutionary stuff, just how beautiful this movie just looks. I will say the story is kind of pretty 2D. The villain is pretty generic, but it kind of almost works in this movie somehow. Like, it doesn't really seem like that big of a hindrance in the movie, because how the villain is just kind of adds to the movie almost. And I don't know, it just, the special effects really carried this movie for me, and it was just a fun movie to watch in the theater.
We had talked about this earlier, but my number 6 is going to be Barbarian.
And for my number 6, I have RRR.
Yeah, and RRR is my number 5. This movie right here, I had heard about it a long time, not a long time ago, but
years ago.
I heard of it years ago. But honestly, this movie is amazing, and I don't know how else to say, because the movie is just so outlandish, but also it's so many conflicting things. So it's so insanely outlandish and over the top, but also there's a sense of groundedness to it as well with the story. Yeah,
because all the things I was hearing about this movie, because I only saw this movie one of the last few weeks of the year, so it was like way after it had come out, and I'd seen a lot of people talk about how over the top this movie was, how completely bonkers this movie was. So that's what I was expecting when I wanted to go see this. Well, when I watched it on Netflix, and I wasn't expecting for the story to actually be like so dark and emotional as it was. I mean, you still had the over the topness like several times throughout this movie, but you also had just this personal human storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, there's just so many conflicting things. Like I said, it's really over the top, but also grounded, and then it's like really serious at times, but also lighthearted.
Yeah,
and it just has so many conflicting things in it, and I feel like it just was able to balance everything so well. And it's kind of a movie where you kind of just, you come for the over the top, but you stay for like the really serious and human stories that they have.
For my number 5, I have The Whale.
And I have The Whale at number 4. This movie, I straight up, first thing you want to talk about this movie, Brendan Fraser, what a comeback. Like, honestly, I mean, I know he's done other things before, like he wasn't just like gone in The Whale.
Yeah.
You know, like he did a few things, but The Whale, he does absolutely fantastic in this movie. He brings he brings so much character, so much depth to such a devastating character, such a devastating story. And honestly, I'm glad that he was nominated. He really deserved it. But if there's one thing I was really upset about, is the fact that this movie was not nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah, he talks about it a lot.
It was not nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. And it's so stupid that sequels can be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah, I don't understand that either, because I think Top Gun Maverick and another sequel.
And it was Glass Onion. They were nominated for Best Adapted Screenplays, but it's because they're sequels. And it's like, it said like, because they're technically adapted from the characters in the first one. Like, what? What are you talking about? And I'm not wanting to trash Top Gun. Top Gun's good, but it's practically great for everything except for the screenplay. Yeah. The screenplay is not bad. It's good at screenplay, but it's also like a basic screenplay and what you would expect out of Top Gun. Sorry, I just want to go on a quick rant about that.
Yeah, but anyways, back to The Whale. This movie is another movie like The Outfit, where it feels like a stage play. This one was actually based on a stage play, so that's why it does feel like a stage play. It's driven by the dialogue. The one setting in the movie just amplifies the weight gain that Brendan Fraser's character has gone through, and how he's pretty much just stuck there, and just like his mindset of not being able to escape the trauma that he's experienced in his life.
And sure, this is about a guy who's really overweight, but this isn't truthfully about a guy who's overweight and, you know, he's unhealthy and he needs to figure out how to be unhealthy. You know, it doesn't use that weight gain as the primary source of where all the sadness is coming from, where all the devastatingness is coming from. This is a movie about a guy who has gone through self-destruction because of past trauma.
And I'm also really glad that Hong Chow was also nominated for this movie.
We had talked about this earlier, but for my number 3, I have The Outfit.
And for my number 3, I have The Batman.
And for my number 2, I also have I have The Batman. And this movie, I'd been looking forward to a long time. We recorded a video over it. We never put it up.
Oh yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was hard for us to find time to actually start editing it. Mm-hmm. But I had been really just defending this movie since day one. I've been defending Robert Pattinson for a while, but me and you have been defending this movie since day one.
Right.
And I'm just so happy that this movie really, because if you're in the indie film world, you already know Robert Pattinson. You already know, all right? You already know how fantastic Robert Pattinson is, okay? But what you got to do is you got to show the world how fantastic Robert Pattinson is. And nobody's going to go watch The Lighthouse. Your superhero movie film fans are not going to go watch The Lighthouse, okay? They're not going to. So you gotta.
Or was that Safdie Brothers movie?
Oh yeah, or Good Time. You know, they're not going to go watch those. So you got to kind of inch Robert Pattinson into them.
Well, Robert Pattinson will be your wingman. Is pretty much what we're saying.
But you gotta slowly enter Robert Pattinson. You gotta
it's
slowly.
Not better than what you said earlier. Not better.
But honestly, he does fantastic in this. I think he's honestly one of the best Batman. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with it, but a lot of them just wanted to hate it in the first place. Mm-hmm. I think the story is fantastic. I know it's a little slower than most Batman movies. And I think, and what I really like about it and why it's probably slower is because most Batman movies really don't focus. I mean, they do like little things here and there, but they never really focused on how he's the world's greatest detective. You know, like I think the Dark Knight trilogy did it a little bit here and there.
Had that one sequence where he like analyzed a bullet.
Yeah, they did a few things here and there, but like half of this movie is dedicated to the fact that he's a detective. And a lot of people, I've seen people talk about how it's stupid if he can't be the world's greatest, he can't be a great detective and been making so many mistakes. This movie is about the growth of Batman. He's only a year 2.
Yeah,
you know, this is about the growth of Batman. This movie is about the growth of Bruce Wayne as a character.
Yeah, and that's one of the main things I loved about this movie. I mean, there's a lot of things I loved about it, but I just loved how it just feels like an early year Batman. It shows his obsession with being Batman. He's barely Bruce Wayne in this movie, and the one time he is, well, like one of the only times he is Bruce Wayne, he's still pretty much in Batman mode. He's like at a funeral and he's still like doesn't barely talk to anybody, just like analyzing the situation and everything. So it just shows that he's still fueled by the trauma that he experienced when he was a kid, when his parents were killed. And he just can't let go of being Batman. He's still trying to work out how to balance the two and what Batman needs to be for the city.
Yeah, and what Bruce Wayne needs to be for the city. And I've seen, you know, a lot of people don't like that the Bruce Wayne isn't really much of a Bruce Wayne, but I think that they're building up to it. And
at least I hope so.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like.
That's what it seems like. There's a lot of talk of, is Bruce Wayne going to do more in the community? Bruce Wayne, you need to be more in the public eye.
Right.
Alfred talks to him about it. There's a lot of talk about what Bruce Wayne needs to be. You know, he doesn't need to just solely focus on Batman. He doesn't need, and his Batman doesn't need to solely focus on the fear. There's an idea, and maybe slightly spoilery, in this the change in his character, going from a person who whenever like a civilian sees him is literally scared. The civilian, the person he's trying to save, is scared of him.
Yeah, the beginning of the movie.
The beginning of the movie, and then the very end, there's a person who literally doesn't want to let go of him. You know, and just seeing that growth in his character.
For my number 2, we talked about a little bit earlier, I have Glass Onion.
And for both of our number 1s, we have Everything Everywhere All at Once. And this movie is absolutely fantastic. It's such a wild movie, but it's fantastic.
Exactly, yeah. Honestly, like I keep saying this to people, this honestly is going to be a tough movie to beat for my favorite movie of the entire decade.
Yeah.
Like, it's like by far my favorite movie of this year. And it's going to be hard for a movie to beat it for the rest of this decade.
Yeah, exactly. And this movie, it's another movie, and it's not I mean, in a sense, it's kind of over the top, like RR, but like it's kind of like RR, where it's such a wild movie. And if you've ever seen have you ever seen like a bug?
Hey, are you Dora? You gotta pause.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the new Steve from Blue's Clues. Hey, have you ever seen Swiss Army Man? No, if you've ever seen Swiss Army Man, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I do think this movie, I do think Everything Everywhere All at Once is better, but it gets this outlandish idea, this crazy over the top idea, but really blends it in well with a very heartfelt story. And this movie is a lot about breaking cycles. The idea that this mom is kind of starting to realizing that maybe she's treating her daughter like her father did to her. She doesn't want it, you know, she starts realizing that. And it's really flown well and blended in well with this crazy like multiverse idea.
Yeah, and speaking about the multiverse, the way they do the multiverse in this movie is just amazing. Like, I have no idea how someone or a team even was able to take this footage and edit together and still make it cohesive with how much it bounced around from different universes, because it completely like full speed for like 3/4 of this movie. Just like bouncing between universes and all these different storylines that are happening at the same time and in each of these universes.
And one thing I'm really happy about, and I'm kind of surprised but not extremely surprised, is how many Oscar nominations this got. I wasn't surprised really because of how like popular this got, but just the kind of movie it is. I was not expecting to get as many nominations as it did, but I'm glad that it did because it really deserves all of them.
And a cool little side story about this movie, Ke Qua Kwan. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name, but he was a child actor. He was in Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom and The Goonies and a few other movies. But then he had retired from acting because he wasn't getting any roles. Because of how racist was at that time. So he had retired from acting and he wasn't on anything. But then he saw Crazy Rich Asians, which funny enough also starred Michelle Yeoh. He saw that in 2018 and thought that, okay, maybe Asians do have another chance in Hollywood again. So he decided to audition for a movie, and this is the first movie that he's in back.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, the directors of the Turn Down for What video are now Oscar nominated. Nominators?
Yeah, they're the people who nominate people.
They're now Oscar nominated directors.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. Which, I mean, if you watch the Turn Down for What music video, you can see how they would direct a movie like this. Because like this movie, there's a lot of similarities. All right, guys, that's our top 20. And I do just want to put all the 54 movies I saw ranked from my letterbox just on the screen right now, just so you can see my full ranking of all the movies I saw last year.
Yeah, and we'll go and do that for me too. Also, probably make it a little less confusing if you had confusion, us bouncing back and forth between the numbers just because of the way we did it this year. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment and let us know what you thought about this video. What are your favorite movies of the last year, 2022? What are your favorite movies of 2022? I don't know why I couldn't remember what the year was, but yeah, what are your favorite movies of 2022? If you have any disagreements with us, go ahead. Please be nice. We're human.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok, all at The Awesome Padron Show.
We do have that.
And we each have our own personal TikToks as well, which we're trying to start using more often.
Yeah.
Mine is at shots of Padron.
And mine is the Marquez, the real Marquez Padron?
Yeah.
I think so. Look that up. See if that's it.
We'll put it somewhere down here.
See if that's it and let me know. Huh?
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.